What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Mr. Cooked Wi-Fi. Alex Wilson. We are officially 1 week away from the start of the 2025 NFL Draft. Can you believe it, Alex? I feel like it just snuck up on us, like it got here so quick. You know, we had all of these different rumors throughout the offseason. Free agency started, free agency ended. All of a sudden, it was the pre-draft season and the pro day season. And now the draft is just here. And I think we kind of know where the Giants are going with the number 3 overall pick. At least we have a pretty good idea. But obviously, everything that happens at number 3 is contingent on what happens at numbers 1 and 2. Number 1, I think we all know, is going to be Cam Ward. Number 2 sounds like it's probably going to be Travis Hunter. And I have a theory as to why I know that for sure, Alex. And I'll share that some point during this live stream. But number 3 overall, we know that the Giants are faced with some big decisions. Do they stick and pick, take a potential generational talent if they think there's one there, or since Joe Schoen was saying during his press conference that he really has this dream of finding a young franchise quarterback, will he take one at number 3 overall, or does the value not match number 3, as he was saying? So that's a big question. Then, of course, he was getting some phone calls, he said, some teams trying to trade up to the number 3 overall pick. That's what we really want to start with and focus on for a good portion of this live stream. The possibility of not trading up, as we discussed many times in the past, but now, what about trading down in the draft order? Is that something that the New York Giants should consider? Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? How are you feeling 1 week away from the NFL draft? And what are your general thoughts on the possibility of the New York Giants trading down?
I am doing it pretty good. I am sifting through rooms faster than the Giants sift through head coaches, trying to find the best Wi-Fi in this house. However, I am still finding a new room, so we'll see how things hold up this time around. But yeah, I want to talk about the trade back scenario, because the truth of the matter is the Giants are taking calls, but how interested are they in actually entertaining those calls? Well, at the very least, Joe Schoen's picking up the phone, not pulling a Dave Gettleman saying, no can do, Saquon Barkley is the man, and we're not talking to anybody else. So, Joe Schoen is listening, gathering as much information as possible. But the truth is, and he said it, we're not going to pass on a generational prospect, even if it's a strong suit on our team. So that means, if he labels Abdul Carter a generational prospect, if he labels Travis Hunter as a generational prospect, he's not going to pass on either of those two guys. Shedeur Sanders, I think that the analysis right now about him, the analysts are very split. It's a split decision. Is he worth going in the top 5? Is he worth, trying to get in the top 10, or maybe even around that 10 range? So that's kind of the question, is where will he end up going next week? We're going to find out pretty damn soon. But I want to talk about trading back. And I want to make one thing very, very clear. I wrote an article this morning and I was thinking about it, Anthony, and I was like, the last time we traded back, the worst possible thing happened. Kadarius Toney and then Evan Neal. Sometimes you just take the really damn good prospect on the board and you don't run the risk of potentially getting absolutely crushed with bad decisions later. You know what I mean? Just because you want to push the envelope into the future, just because you want to kick the can down the road does not mean you're going to get a better beer down that road. So I think that maybe you just take the good one right in front of you. And right now that's Travis Hunter or it's Abdul Carter in terms of pure BPA, pure best player available. Now I'd be more interested, and this is where I definitely think the Giants should consider this, trading back in the second round, gathering more draft capital in the second round, especially if they want to try to get a quarterback. I would be very interested in seeing what they could get if they move back a couple spots in the second, if they wanted to get like a Milrow or whatever it might be, whoever, if anyone's even available that they like. So we'll see how things kind of materialize there. But that's something that I want to discuss as well. Second round trade back. Maybe there's some opportunity to get some more draft capital in this class, or even maybe in the future, just to move back a couple spots, especially because of the drop off in talent, in my opinion, is quite steep after the first 10 picks. But looking at Shedeur Sanders, let's just play this game that he drops to 9. And right now the consensus is like the teams in the 8-9 range are the ones that are really looking at him saying he's going to be available for us. If the Giants feel that that's what's going to happen and they're in touch with the league, they kind of know what other teams are probably feeling more than the media does. Do you think there's a world where they decide, hey, let's trade back a couple spots and get more draft capital and still draft a quarterback? It's the best option at the moment, but we can still maybe add a second round pick to our draft pool, and we can still walk away with a number 2 quarterback in this draft class. Now, the obvious downside is you lose out on Carter and you lose out on the potential Hunter as well. I don't know if it's worthwhile doing that, but maybe you have a differing opinion on if the league feels as though Sanders is going to be in that 8 to 9 range. Maybe they move back a couple spots, still add some value, and they still get Sanders. Is that something that you think could happen if the league feels that way? I know you might have a differing opinion there.
So you're essentially predicating this trade down on adding extra picks, but still targeting Shador Sanders. Like that's the goal is
Correct.
still to get Shador. I think that's
Yes.
difficult because you can't go down to the 9-10 range. You have to go to 7-8 because at 9 you have the New Orleans Saints, and they're very much in the quarterback market, especially with the recent update about Derek Carr and his shoulder injury and the fact that he now could potentially miss this season, I was reading. So with Derek Carr's future in doubt in New Orleans, you can't trade behind them. If you're trying to trade down but still target Shador, I mean, you're only going to be trading down a maximum of 5 spots down to number 8 overall. And you're probably not getting your second round pick that you want out of that. Like I know you're mentioning the second round pick as kind of being the target to gain in such a trade down. To move down those 5 spots, I'm not entirely sure if you're getting, and now maybe you are because one of those 2 blue chippers will be on the board, whether that is Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Maybe that does inflate the price, but you're not moving back all that far. And in my opinion, in this particular draft class, Alex, once you get to about pick number 7, there's not really much of a difference between all those prospects. Like between picks, I want to say 5 to 7, all the way through 15/20. There's obviously a difference in talent in some of those guys, but they're kind of in the same cluster. There really is only those 2 blue chippers at the top and the top tier quarterback in Cam Ward. Those first 3 selections are where you want to be. And if you're going to move down, I don't see why you would stop at pick 7 or 8 and then settle for the quarterback that you didn't have a conviction in and taking at number 3. Why not trade down even further, get an additional first round pick in next year's draft and look ahead to get a quarterback in 2026? I think that makes far more sense for the Giants, who, if you're going to pass on the quarterback at 3, I don't think you should settle on him at about 7 or 8. So how do you feel about that? You know, when you're looking at this draft class, at the top, it's Carter, it's Hunter, and it's Ward. Outside of that, yes, you've got the Mason Grahams of the world. You've got Ted McMillan. You've got some other guys. But really, that 5 to 15 range is kind of all the same. I think this is a better year where you don't want to trade down just a couple spots and stay inside the top 10. You probably want to trade down as far as to go outside of the top 10 so you get a boatload of draft capital, King's ransom, that you can then utilize in next year's draft.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I kind of feel the same way. And this is I want to preface this by saying I do not want to trade back. I don't think it's the right move. I think you take Abdul Carter, you take Travis Hunter. It's that simple. You know what I mean? Like Carter allows you to develop an identity on the defensive line that we haven't had in a very, very long time. Travis Hunter gives you the opportunity to say, hey, like we can play you at both positions. Go beat, we're happy to play you at both positions, actually. Go beat Deonte Banks. Simple as that. Go beat him. Go win the job. If you win the job, it's yours. You can play receiver in the cornerback, but if you can't, we're not going to just hand deliver you an opportunity to play when you have not won that job outright. So I think the Giants can say to themselves, hell, we killed 2 birds with 1 stone. If he's better than Deonte Banks, let him play. Like, why wouldn't you? But, if he's not better and he doesn't win that job outright, based on just how much he's going to have to consume in knowledge, I think that he just plays receiver for you. And listen, Travis Hunter is the guy I want. Like hands down, he is the guy I want. And the reason I say that is because Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter locked in for 5 more years. I know obviously Malik Neighbors already has 1 year under his belt. So, you're talking about Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors for 4 cost control years. You could always tag Malik Neighbors or extend him early and push void years into the future. If you have Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors, you have the best young core of receivers in football in terms of guys under like 24 years old, 23 years old, like the best core of receivers. You drop a young quarterback into that. And Anthony, this is where I'm like, right now, I'm not really willing to sell the farm to get Cam Ward because I don't think this team is ready for that just yet. But next year, if you have those 2 guys and you sell the farm for a quarterback, you trade future draft capital, you do whatever you have to do to get the guy that you want, and you drop that young quarterback into a situation where they have Neighbors and Travis Hunter at receiver, yeah, you're positioning that player to have a bright future. You're positioning that quarterback to actually develop, not have no support system. So I know it's unlikely that you get Hunter because I think the Browns are going to take him. However, like I would just tell him outright, like, yeah, buddy, like beat Deonte Banks if you want to play cornerback too. Like that's the opportunity you have. However, talking about the trade back, just to answer your initial question, Anthony, before I pass it on to you, I don't necessarily, if they were going to trade back, it should be with the intention of getting a first round pick for next year to use that draft capital to get a quarterback. That's only if they were like dead set on moving back, which they shouldn't be. But yes, if that was the case, I agree with your point.
Yeah, essentially what I was saying is if you're going to trade down in this year's draft because you don't have conviction in a quarterback at number 3, then you should trade down even further and load up on draft capital in next year's draft class. If you want a quarterback but you don't like Shedeur Sanders, then your mission should be to get a quarterback next year, I would think. And then trade down further, go down to 11 where the San Francisco 49ers are. Trade package becomes very similar to the one when the Texans traded up for Will Anderson Jr. from 12 to 3, going 11 to 3. You're probably getting a future first and future third round pick next year. That's the draft capital that you need to make a potential trade up for a quarterback in 2026. So that would be my argument. I don't really want to trade down though, because I think this is a draft class where there's only 2 blue chip prospects, and I'm not passing up on the opportunity of taking one of those 2 players. But anyway, we got a super chat here from Playboy Phil. Really do appreciate you, Playboy Phil, saying, been listening to Browns content creators. Their GM sees Travis as a wide receiver. He said he's not playing. If he's not playing both sides of the ball, he's not playing at all. So maybe they take Abdul if his medicals come back. So I will go ahead and say this. The general manager did say that they view Travis as a wide receiver first and a cornerback secondary, but he also said that he thinks that he could potentially pull it off, play both sides, and become the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. That's exactly what Andrew Berry, the general manager of the Browns, said. Not verbatim, but paraphrasing there. So I think that he is open to playing him on both sides of the ball, and I think that if they do draft him, they will have Travis Hunter play both sides of the ball. So I don't think this is going to be a situation where Travis Hunter refuses to go to Cleveland. I think he's going to be the number 2 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. And in fact, I actually think we have clear confirmation of that, Alex. And this is what I was referencing at the top of the live stream. Information that I'm going to present to you. The New York Giants have never, under Joe Schoen, drafted somebody in the first or second round that they didn't have a top 30 visit with. They've had a lot of top 30 visits this year. You know who they haven't had a top 30 visit with? Travis Hunter. You know who they didn't have a top 30 visit with last year? Caleb Williams, even though they were in the quarterback market. Why? Because they knew Caleb Williams was going number 1 overall. So why would they not have one with Cam Ward? They haven't had one with, and they haven't had one with Travis Hunter. That's because they know that those 2 players are going number 1 and number 2 overall in this year's draft. That's my way of viewing and interpreting this whole situation. So I think everybody knows I want Travis Hunter. That would be my pick if he was on the board at number 3 overall. I would honestly probably take him at number 1 overall, except maybe not over Cam Ward, because I think that he's a quarterback of the future. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's excellent. If he were there at number 3, I would sprint to the podium to take him. However, I think the dream is dead. It's very unfortunate to say, but those kind of just reading between the lines here of the pre-draft process, the Browns sending their owner to the Colorado Pro Day, the Giants not taking a top 30 visit with Travis Hunter. I think the writing is on the wall. Alex, what do you think about that? Do you think that Travis Hunter even has any chance of falling to 3, or kind of the way that I'm interpreting it, kind of seems like the Giants already know that he's not going to be on the board with the 3rd overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point that you make. The only counter I can even try to present, just to play devil's advocate, is that they've done so much research on those Colorado players already. Like, they've sent the whole brass to practices and games like during the season. They saw him at the pro day, they saw him at the combine. Like, they've been everywhere, and they know how good he is, and they have no questions about him. Like, on the color sheet, like he checks the character boxes, he checks the player boxes. Like, they know they don't even need to waste a top 30 visit on him. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only way I can justify it, is like, they don't need to use a top 30 visit because they don't want to waste it on him, because they know how good he is. They know how fast they would run to the podium. That's the only devil's advocate argument I can present. They just know already. They don't need that extra piece of information when they could use it on maybe a lesser player in the mid rounds where they just want that little bit of piece of information. Like, it is meaningful. So that's the only argument I can present to like really combat that. But I mean, history usually tells all, and if they're not using that on that type of player, it means they probably don't think they're going to get him, which, yeah, it sucks. But am I upset that Abdul Carter is going to be a Giant? Hell freaking no. That dude, and guys, the thing about Abdul Carter, and I know the injuries are concerning, Joe Schoen kind of brushed it off yesterday. Like, they don't see any concern with the shoulder, they don't see any concern with the foot. They feel he's going to be totally fine. What makes Abdul Carter so awesome is that he is so raw as a prospect. You know what I mean? He's so dominant, yet so good already. If he gets better with his hands and he gets better with his pass rush, his strategy and his moves, he's going to be legitimately unstoppable. And let me tell you one thing I think that really piques my interest when I was watching Abdul Carter yesterday. What he's capable of doing against mobile quarterbacks. The Giants can use him as a spy against mobile quarterbacks. His closing speed is absolutely insane. And when you have Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels and even Dak can move sometimes. If you have Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts is the most important really in this conversation, two extremely mobile quarterbacks, you have to have not only a really good linebacker, but you have to have a guy that just has that hunter instincts, which is a pun because Travis Hunter, but he just has to have that instinct of a killer. And Abdul Carter has that killer instinct, and he can be that spy for you against those mobile QBs. And that's going to be so good for the Giants. They can take a linebacker and stick him, and really use him as like a middle linebacker on certain plays to spy if they want to. Like they can do so many things with Carter and use him in so many various ways to maximize his strengths. Am I upset that, Carter is going to be a Giant? Absolutely not. Am I concerned about his injuries? Guys, if the Giants aren't, if the league isn't, he wouldn't be considered the third overall pick right now. He wouldn't be graded so high. Like this is a player that is just sniffing the surface. And we have one of the best defensive line coaches in the league. And Andre Patterson, he's walking into a situation where he has Brian Burns, one of the best pure pass rushers in the league. You know what I mean? Like he is going to learn from Dexter Lawrence. Like this is a really good spot for him to walk into. And the Giants, and someone said in the chat, I believe, like think about the rotation of pass rushers. You have Golston who we just got. We have Kayvon. You got Burns. You got Dexter. You can use you can use Abdul standing in whatever stance you want him to be in, and he's gonna be a monster. So this is such an interesting position for the Giants to be in. Let's talk about, identity. That is the identifying move they need to make to get their defensive line to a position where Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland, it's going to make them look even better as free agent acquisitions, having an elite pass rush. It takes pressure off the secondary. Tyler Nubin, you're going to see him take a massive step forward in his progression because he's not going to have to be worried about the secondary. How about Andrew Phillips in the slot? He's gonna get so much pressure off them because those throws are gonna have to come out early. He's gonna be able to be aggressive, pick them off, like looking, to be an aggressive player. And there's gonna be more interceptions on this defense. So this is really, really a good situation for the Giants to be in. Yeah, if they lose out on Carter, it sucks. However, I'm not concerned about the medicals because the league doesn't seem to be. And this guy has the potential, if the Giants do it right, to be special. And we haven't had a special pass rusher like that for a long time. I'd say Brian Burns is a special player, but he's not. Like Abdul Carter could be perennial all-pro level special, like a Dexter Lawrence. Imagine having Dexter Lawrence alongside another perennial Pro Bowl edge rusher. You're looking at, all your defense is set for years. Really good situation to be in if you're the Giants.
It would be an ideal situation. And, Joe Shane said it yesterday. Look at how the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They had 4 pass rushers on every single play. They didn't blitz at all. If you can have 4 really talented pass rushers, you can get home after the quarterback and you can win some big-time football games. And that's what the Giants would be able to do with Abdul Carter. So I really like Abdul Carter. I'm not concerned about the medicals at all. Nobody else seems to be within the NFL, so not really much reason for us to be. So Playboy Phil, really do appreciate the super chat. Unfortunate as it may be, I think we have to kiss the Travis Hunter dream goodbye. But hey, can't be too upset. You're still getting Abdul Carter at number 3 overall, or a quarterback, which I know is controversial in its own right. But Jeff here with a big super chat. Appreciate you, Jeff, saying you're the GM. You spent the number 5 pick on Kayvon and a second for Burns. You took Banks in the first, Phillips with a third, and paid Adebo. Then you decided to pay Slayton. Where is Hunter and Carter playing, and at whose expense? I think the main way that I look at this is you always just take the best player available because you never know what happens next, right? So you take Abdul Carter. Yes, you spent the 5th pick on Kayvon. You sent a second in a trade for Burns. Both of those things are true. But what if Kayvon has a bad ACL this year? What if Brian Burns has an Achilles? Okay, now you are happy that you have Abdul Carter. And if that doesn't happen, either of those guys, let's imagine they both stay healthy, as I really hope and pray that they do. Well, now you've just got 3 elite pass rushers out there. You move them around. Pass rushers aren't meant to play 80% of snaps like we see from the Giants pass rushers, right? Like, Alex, we had games last year where I think Brian Burns was on the field for 100% of snaps. That's unusual. I want Giants fans to understand that that's not normal, because I know that snap tracking and stuff like that has become more popular. So people see how many snaps a player plays. And we see the Giants constantly putting Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau out there for 80% of snaps, like as if that's a normal thing. And it's just really not. That number's supposed to be closer to 60, 70%. Like these guys are supposed to rotate, but the Giants just haven't had any kind of depth on the defensive line at any point over the last 3 years, really. I'm talking on the interior. I'm talking on the edge. There's always supposed to be some sort of a rotation where a guy gets a little bit banged up or is a little bit tired, running out of gas. All right, get him off the field for a few plays. Get that other guy in. The Giants haven't had that opportunity. So they've had a dead tired Brian Burns, a dead tired Kayvon Thibodeau, an exhausted Dexter Lawrence out there playing an extreme amount of snaps. Adding Abdul Carter to the mix makes all of these players better because now none of them have to be as gassed when they're on the football field. And additionally, a lot of that gassing that was occurring and the tiring out of all these players was related to the offense. The offense not sustaining drives and staying on the field. The offense should be better this year with an actual legitimate quarterback who can play at a professional level under center in Russell Wilson. So all of these things combined, you're going to see a defense that's less tired, more energized, and therefore more effective, plus has more depth. And now you've got an opportunity to rotate and create a beautiful situation where everybody is attacking offensive linemen with fresh legs and fresh minds. So that's from the Abdul Carter perspective. From the Travis Hunter perspective, this could be an offense that legitimately puts 4 receivers out there almost every single play if they draft Travis Hunter. And that's not a bad thing. Because if you got a quarterback who can get the ball out quickly and you've got an array of weapons, you can absolutely go with a 4-receiver set. You can take a tight end off the field or take a running back off the field and be dynamic. We got to understand that the best offenses in the NFL stack talent. I mean, on a lot of teams, Darius Slayton would not be a wide receiver 2. He'd be a wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 4 on a lot of NFL teams. So yeah, we just paid Slayton to play that W2/WR3 role. But let's be real about Darius Slayton. He's not a bona fide number 2 wide receiver. It's going to come at his expense if the Giants were to draft Travis Hunter. He is going to lose some playing time, and that is perfectly fine because you're stacking talent, and reliable and dynamic playmakers all over the field is always a good thing. You always have to think about injuries, and you have to think about matchups. You know how hard it is for a defensive secondary to match up? I mean, put this in perspective, Alex. We've watched our secondary. Okay, maybe we're good at CB1, but our CB2 isn't so good. Maybe our slot cornerback is good, but our CB2 and our CB3 is a little bit shaky. Other teams have that same experience where maybe they like one guy in their secondary, but they're a little bit shaky elsewhere. Well, now, how about you're going up against Malik Neighbors, Travis Hunter, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson? Good luck, defense. You figure it out. And that's my whole point here. You want to stack talent at positions to create matchup nightmares. The reason why the Cincinnati Bengals can put up 40 points on any given Sunday is because they can stack talent all over that offense and nobody can match up against them. So that's really how I would contextualize that and answer that question in full. It's all about stacking talent in order to create matchup advantages on your offense with the Travis Hunter and on your defense with an Abdul Carter. Plus, and this is kind of my last point, I don't think any of these guys that we're really mentioning are good enough to prevent you from drafting a potential all-pro talent, because none of them are all-pros minus Dexter Lawrence on the defensive line, but that's not even going to conflict with Abdul Carter anyway. Brian Burns is a good player. He's not an all-pro. Slayton's not an all-pro. Debo's not an all-pro. Banks is definitely not an all-pro. Neither is Drew Phillips. Sure, maybe some of those guys could develop and become all-pros. None of them are all-pros. And if you view Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter as a potential all-pro player, none of these guys mentioned should prevent you from running that ticket up there to Roger Goodell and selecting one of these potential all-pro talents to add to your roster.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jeff. Thank you for the super chat. Very, very generous of you. And you know, I'm going to use the team that keeps winning Super Bowls as a good example, the Eagles. You want to know what they did? They just signed Azeez Ojulari, and you know, they draft pass rushers every year. They still have Brandon Graham on the team. Who was it? Bryce Huff from the Jets, and he barely played. You know, they acknowledge, well, okay, we have to have backup plans in place, right? So they had Bryce Huff. They signed Ojulari this offseason. I know Brandon Graham, did he retire? I don't even remember. He's coming back for another season. They just keep stacking talent at positions that make an impact in critical moments. You know what I mean? Why did the Eagles win the Super Bowl? Well, yeah, I mean, their offense looked great, but their pass rush looked amazing. You know, their pass rush dominated Patrick Mahomes. The Giants won their Super Bowls because our pass rush dominated Tom Brady. Like, that's how you win Super Bowls, having a great pass rush. Not to say the Giants are going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon, but they at least can have one of the elements required to dominate in moments like that, critical moments. If the Eagles, like think about how sweet it would be, right? End of the season, Giants play the Eagles always like last game of the year. Eagles are trying to wrap up the number 1 seed, and the Giants have a chance to sneak into the wild card. And your defense puts on an absolute show because you have one of the best pass rushes in football. And you have a big sack on Jalen Hurts. So you force him to make a mistake and you win the game because of it. That is what good pass rushes do for you. Those moments, they happen all the time in the NFL, where critical situations that come down to the wire. The Giants are hoping to get into the playoffs and they need one big play. And then Abdul Carter comes in and makes a massive play happen because, well, he's Abdul Carter and he's supposed to. Or Brian Burns does it because he's paid like that. Or Dexter Lawrence does it because he's that good. Like, that's just what is required in those big moments. You need to have the talent to be able to succeed in those situations. And the Giants have a chance to get one of those two guys, whether it be Hunter, who is able to take a screen to the house in a critical moment, or Abdul Carter, who's able to sack, one of the more difficult quarterbacks to manage in a critical moment and when the playoffs on the line. That's what you want. That is how you build critical teams. And, to answer your question, Jeff, like if I'm the GM, who am I playing at and at whose expense? Guys, I would draft Hunter and bench Darius Slayton today after paying him. I don't give 2 shits about Darius Slayton's playing time if you have Travis Hunter. That's the truth. Why? Because Travis Hunter is astronomically better than Darius Slayton. Astronomically. You do not. And you can still get Slayton on the field. Let's not kid ourselves here. Like, you can still get Slayton on the field plenty, and injuries happen. You know what I mean? But like, he's not stopping me from drafting Travis Hunter. There's no freaking way. Abdul Carter, his upside is so much better than Kayvon Thibodeau's right now. Like, in terms of just 5 years of cost controlled talent, plus more in terms of his raw upside and natural power. Like, his upside is substantially better, than Thibodeau's right now with context. Neither of those two guys are stopping me. Not even giving me pause at drafting a piece like one of these two blue chip prospects. So yeah, I appreciate the super chat, but yeah, this Giants team is not good enough to pass on generational prospects. Even if you think that we've overspent capital, whether it's financial resources or draft picks on those positions, because the guys that we have there, like, they're not that good. The only reason we kept Darius Slayton is because the wide receiver market was horrible this year. It was horrendous. That was the only reason we kept him. He even said, I didn't think I was coming back here. But the Giants said, well, crap, like, the guys out there are not very good. If we bring him Slayton back, or at least we know what we're getting with him. You know what I mean? At least we're not taking a shot in the dark. So, that's just kind of how I view it. I like Slayton. He's a good player. He's a fine player. But there's no way, Travis Hunter's going to steal reps from him. And like, Slayton gets paid anyway. So I don't think he's upset about it.
True. He does get his money regardless of that fact. So he's got, what was it, 26 million guaranteed. So basically 2 years of guaranteed money. Good for him. He'll be okay. Thanks again, Jeff, for that super chat. Moving here to Edward Scissorhands with the super chat. Thank you, Edward, saying Carter, right tackle, Kelvin Banks, plus extra draft capital, plus veteran free agent. So I think, okay, so what Edward is saying here is traded down Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle out of Texas, plus extra draft capital on a veteran free agent would be a better deal than taking Abdul Carter number 3. I think that there's more risk involved with a prospect like Kelvin Banks plus extra draft capital. Keep in mind, extra draft capital means that the Giants have extra draft picks that they can mess up, right? Like, we're talking about Joe Shane here. We're not talking about Howie Roseman. We're not talking about a guy who's gone out there and picked an all-pro in every single draft class. We're talking about Joe Shane, who in 2022, I don't know, what did he draft? 1 starting caliber player in like 7 selections? I mean, 2 maybe. 2023 was arguably even worse. So 2024 sure was good, but I did some reading. Apparently Ryan Cowden had a lot to do with that, and Ryan Cowden is no longer with the organization. So he very much needs to prove, Joe Shane does, that he could do that back-to-back seasons, have another good year. So moving down, collecting extra draft capital, it gives you more darts to throw at the board, more of an opportunity to strike on extra draft picks. So I understand all of that, and I get the intrigue with it. But I think when you got a sure thing, a ready-made product on the board like that, and you're a GM that needs to win games this year, you're in a do-or-die situation, I think you got to just go ahead and take that best player available and say, hey, go out there, play your best ball, and help me win some damn games so I can save my job. I think that's the mindset that Joe Shane would have. Now, I get it, though. Kelvin Banks is a really good offensive lineman, but I think the Giants feel like they can get by with their kind of patchwork offensive line for another year. They've got a lot of guys under contract, and I don't know how many more guys they can add to the mix. Like, they might add another mid-round pick in this year's draft to the offensive line, but I think that they feel confident based on what they saw in the first 5 weeks last year prior to Andrew Thomas's injury, that they can get by with their current offensive line. So I think this is an intriguing option, extra draft capital. Kelvin Banks is a really good player, sure. But at the end of the day, I just kind of think back to when the New York Giants did almost exactly this in 2021. They could have drafted Micah Parsons. Instead, they traded down. Yes, they didn't. They took a wide receiver in Kadarius Toney rather than offensive tackle like Kelvin Banks. But they did take the offensive tackle the following year with that extra draft capital that they got. And that offensive tackle, well, his name was Evan Neal, and the guy barely deserves to still be in the NFL. Moving to guard now, and then we'll see what happens. That might be out of the league by next year. Who knows with Evan Neal and how poorly he's played through the first 3 seasons of his career, now entering year 4. So nobody's a sure thing in the NFL, not even Abdul Carter. But again, I think this Giants team get as close to a sure thing as possible when you're picking top 3 here. I would just go with Abdul Carter at number 3.
I would too. And look, the Giants have been miserable developing offensive linemen, just absolutely abysmal at it. I don't trust them. You know, obviously it's not my decision, but I don't trust them to develop an offensive lineman. I like Carmen Priscilla. I think we saw progress last year, but I mean, Josh Ezeudu, I would not be surprised if he was cut, this upcoming training camp. There are guys on that offensive line that are probably going to get cut who were draft picks no more than 3 years ago. So, I do think some of them are already gone. Marcus McKethan's gone. I mean, there's a laundry list of offensive linemen that have been churned out. I mean, think about the guys that have left that have become decent players. Ben Bredesen, he's now a good player for the Buccaneers. He just got an extension. You know what I mean? The Giants let guys go because we do not know how to coach them nor develop them. So it's unfortunate. It just is what it is. But that's part of the problem with this organization is that, yeah, we can have all this great talent, all these great players, but we have failed to maximize them. So the most important thing to me, Anthony, is drafting the best possible players that we can, so we can't mess them up. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that sounds crazy, but I actually kind of am subscribing to that now. Like, the Giants mess up a lot of players, all the time. And if we can draft the best possible guys, at least you try to mitigate the risk that they don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, Dexter Lawrence is great because I think he did a lot of that work on his own. Andrew Thomas is great because he did a lot of that work on his own. Like, I don't really give much stock to Bobby Johnson for making Andrew Thomas great. I don't. That's just how I feel. I think you just go BPA and you take the generational blue chip talent on the board, because the truth is that Abdul Carter is probably going to be really good in spite of the Giants coaching, because they have not proven to us that they're very competent until proven otherwise. Like, I got to see it. You know what I mean? Like, I got to see it to believe it now. Like, as a Giants fan, I'm trying to be optimistic, and honestly, I am more optimistic than I have been in a long time. But I still got to see it to believe it, Anthony. I love the players that we got. I love the improvements that we've made. But I think you are on boat with me on this one. I got to see these results before I truly believe that we are turning a corner.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially when we're talking about young players, draft picks, guys entering their second, third year, or rookies. It doesn't matter. Anybody who's still developing, the Giants, I mean, we have all collectively as a fan base complained that they don't know how to develop their talent properly. We have all complained about guys who they failed to develop that went on to play for other teams and have a much better, more successful careers. Evan Engram, obviously Saquon, this most recent season that he had, whatever. You guys get the point. Will Hernandez is another one. The Giants just don't know how to develop their talent. So trading down and taking a lesser talent, a guy that you really need to develop, and a guy maybe like Kelvin Banks just might not be a good idea for this team that hasn't proven that it knows how to get the most out of its players. But a guy like Abdul Carter, not that hard to get the most out of him. Just let him rush after the passer. Jack Whitman here with a super chat. Thank you, Jack. Another Fireside Giants OG in here all the time, saying, I don't want to trade back, take Carter or Hunter. I fear another Neal and the other plus who shall not be named situation. If I trade back, I'm targeting the 49ers, get a 2026 first, and go get Nuss Bus. And also, Jack did add an extra chat here. Yes, in addition to my super chat, hey, both, I hope you're doing well. Keep up the great work, lads. And Jack, we really do appreciated you. I saw that go by in the live chat. I wanted to make sure I pulled it up when I brought up Jack's super chat. But Jack, I don't want to trade down either. I also fear another Neal situation, where you trade down, you take a lesser prospect, that prospect doesn't hit, and the future draft capital doesn't help you out all that much. But what I will say, if you are going to trade down, as I was saying at the top of the show, I would trade down all the way to about 11 where the 49ers are. The reason being is because you could find a very one-to-one comparison in draft capital to draw from in a potential trade. Because in 2023, the Houston Texans went from pick number 12 to number 3 overall for a star pass rusher. If the 49ers were to go from 11 to 3 for the star pass rusher and Abdul Carter, the trade package would absolutely be very similar. And what the Texans gave up to the Cardinals was their first round pick that year, obviously, to move up to 8 spots, their second round pick as well in that year's draft, the first round pick in 2024, and a third round pick in 2024. So if the Giants were to trade down, let's say with the 49ers, Alex, they could potentially field the 49ers second round pick in this year's draft, which I believe is about 41 or 2 overall, somewhere in that range. A second round pick this year, an extra second round because they already have one, a first round pick next year, and a third round pick next year. Now, what you get with all that, you're picking 11th, so you're getting a good player, but definitely not on the same caliber of Abdul Carter. But you're also getting two selections in the second round with that additional second round pick. And now you've got all the draft capital in the world with a first and a third in your pocket in 2026. You can go up and get a Nuss Bus or another quarterback, whoever it is at the top of the NFL draft next year. Does that package specifically, Alex, entice you? Because I know that you're not a fan of trading down, and I'm not really a fan of it either. But if I were to make a trade down, that kind of a package, it's the only one that's going to make me give it a second thought and say, hey, maybe this is something we should consider, just considering the fact that you're getting so much future draft capital plus an extra second round pick this year. With all those picks, if you had a good drafting GM who has a good eye for talent, that should be able to turn a franchise around pretty quickly. But the only thing that I'll say before I hand it over to you, Alex, what has it done so far for the Arizona Cardinals, right? Hasn't done a whole lot because they still suck. So maybe it's not all that worth it in the end because you got to be able to draft good talent and develop that talent. But with that trade package that I threw out there for you as an example, the Texans one, what are your thoughts on a potential trade down to 11?
So the biggest fear that I have with this package, and in theory, it's a great concept, right? The biggest fear I have with this package is that it's the 49ers. And I don't trust Shanahan to not have another bad season. You know what I mean? I think that the 49ers are going to turn around and probably put up at least 9 to 10 wins. You know what I mean? And if that happens, if the 49ers pull that off and they win 9 to 10 games, they get McCaffrey back and Ayuk is healthy and, they have a little bit more, spunk, that pick's going to be very much useless to us in some ways. You know what I mean? That first round pick in the 20s, it's not getting you very far up. If the Giants are a 6-win team and you're drafting 11th or 12th and you have a mid-20s pick, it's not pushing the needle very far to get you up to where you want to be to get that quarterback that you don't so desperately want. Because most likely you're going to have to get into the top 3. So you're probably talking about 2 first-round picks next year and your first-round pick from 2027 just to move up to get that quarterback. So it's a risk and it's a gamble. I don't trust the 49ers to lose enough games next year to make it worthwhile. Is that something that concerns you? Because it does concern me. If we were like, okay, it's the Cardinals or maybe it's the Jaguars or it's the Raiders. Yeah, I'm a little bit more willing to do it because I don't think they're going to be very good. But I don't think the 49ers are going to turn around and have another bad season. They were plagued by injury. And that's kind of where I get a little bit concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it doesn't really change anything for me because when the Texans and the Cardinals made that trade, the Cardinals inherited, I think, pick number 27 in the following year's draft from the Texans. So I don't know. I think it's still just about the same amount of value.
I don't think
that
they thought though.
Perceiving.
I don't think that they thought CJ Stroud was going to be as good as he was. You know what I mean? I think that's probably what they were thinking. Like CJ Stroud, there's no way CJ Stroud's coming into the league and making the playoffs immediately.
Well, the trade was for Will Anderson Jr., just to clarify. I know you're saying CJ Stroud, they had him in that same draft, but they didn't trade down with CJ Stroud on the board. CJ Stroud went second. If you remember, the Texans picked back-to-back second and third that year.
Yeah. I'm just saying, getting that pick, they probably didn't think that the Texans would be as good as they were to make that pick more valuable. The one that they had to trade away.
No, that I understand, but if we're using that trade as our reference point and comparing it, we can assume that it's going to be a low pick. And I think the value is still similar. I'm saying the value is the same. It doesn't really change based on, the 49ers. We expect them to be a good team. So the value would be potentially the same as that Texans trade. Man, My guy Alex is a potato right now. I don't know.
I think more so what I'm trying to say is like
Oh, there goes Alex. Is he cut out for anybody else? I'm getting a spinning wheel of death right here. So, all right. I think I understood what Alex was trying to say, though. I think he was trying to explain something I got. I get it. Listen, you probably hope that it's a higher pick than where the Cardinals got from the Texans, and I understand that. I'm just saying I wouldn't even make the trade. Listen, to be completely honest with you, I don't think that I would trade down to pick number 11. I think if Abdul Carter's on the board, I'm just going to go ahead and take him. But again, that trade package is about the only one that I would consider. And Alex has reappeared after disappearing and completely disconnecting on me. But no, Alex, I understood what you were saying. I'm just saying that it doesn't change anything for me because the value is still the same.
Yeah. No, I understand. What I was more so getting at was like if the Giants were going to trade up in 2027, the value that you're getting, like the 27, let's say it's a mid-20s pick, it would, and you're trying to go up to get a quarterback, it's just not going to be enough, is what I'm trying to say. It's not going to be enough to move up as far as I think we would need to. You're going to have to probably use another first round pick in 2027 just to move the needle enough to get to the guy that you really want. It's a
Sure.
tough thing to project.
But if you didn't have the extra first round pick, even if it's a late 20s pick, it's probably not even possible to trade up. So it's now just opening a possibility, right? Because if they did have that extra second round or that extra first round pick, even if it is 25, it's a lot more valuable than not having it and not even being able to make a trade up the draft order without dipping into
Sure.
27, 28 first round capital. So I don't know. I think
Sure.
that there's an argument for it. Like I said, when you disappeared
I'll
for a
say this
second, I
though.
probably wouldn't make the trade, but a package like that would be the only thing that could maybe make it a consideration.
Yeah, I'll say this though. If the Giants, right, like Joe Shane, like he has to win football games now. If he gets fired next year, we're assuming they didn't look very good this season. We're assuming they probably are like a 4 or 5 win team. So the Giants are still going to be in a position to at least be in the top 10, and they could probably use a future first and whatever it might be to move up enough spots to get a quarterback. There's a couple of QBs in next year's draft class. I think the Giants will be super interested in. But with that being said, I don't know. It's definitely like the future is hard to project right now for this team because like if the Giants fire Joe Shane, a new regime takes over and they have a really good core of young talent. Like they got Neighbors in this instance, they probably have Abdul Carter. They still have Brian Burns. They have Dexter Lawrence. They got some really good talent, at least on paper. Like I'll say this: if the Giants were to have turned over their roster before this offseason, they would have rather turned over their coaching staff and front office this offseason. The GM and head coach would be kind of consuming a really, really questionable situation. But if you get Abdul Carter and with these free agent signings and this draft class, you're going to be a really attractive place next year, and that's kind of where like I don't really want to take Shedeur Sanders because I mean I don't think he's like all that at third overall anyway. But if they take him and the Giants don't win enough games and Sanders is sitting there not playing and they're not that good and he gets fired, a new regime inherits a quarterback they didn't draft a year ago. So like there's just too much risk involved to me right now for it.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to segue into the super chat from Jason Benjamin saying, in my opinion, the edge class is deep. I don't know if we need to take Abdul at 3. I'm team Shedeur. If we take Abdul, I won't complain. Of course, I'll be happy either way. Jason, thank you so much for the super chat. And I get your perspective on this. It is a deep edge class. There are some other talents in here in this draft class. Plus, it's not the biggest need for the New York Giants on the edge. They don't really have like an immediate need, like they need to fill in and get a starter right now, kind of like they did last year. Like they needed a wide receiver one, didn't have one. They could easily plug that guy in. So I know that kind of ties into the conversations we were having earlier about stacking talent and just finding ways to get all these guys on the field. So I get this perspective. It just comes down to how you feel about Shedeur Sanders, right? Because if you don't view him as a potential franchise quarterback, then you don't want to waste the number 3 overall pick on him, especially when you have a potential generational, all-pro, Pro Bowl, whatever you want to call Abdul Carter on the board. You have to feel like you can at least get high-quality starting quarterback play out of Shedeur Sanders. If you feel that way, you can totally be in Team Shedeur. And I think that's a possibility. So if the Giants took Shedeur, I'm not going to throw a fit. I'll be okay with it. It's not my preference at this point because I'm fine rolling into 2025 with Russell Wilson as my quarterback. But if they do take Shedeur Sanders, you could argue that the biggest need that the Giants have on this roster is a long-term quarterback option. 36-year-old Russell Wilson, 31-year-old Jameis Winston. One of them's on a 1-year deal, the other one's on a 2-year deal. They don't have a future at the position. Arguably, the future at the quarterback position is the more pressing need than a cornerback, a wide receiver, an edge rusher. That could be an argument that you make. So maybe that's why you want to go ahead and take Shedeur. But again, it just comes down to your own personal evaluation of Shedeur. And then it really just comes down for all of us fans who are watching what Brian Dable thinks of Shedeur Sanders. Because if Brian Dable doesn't think that he has franchise quarterback potential, they're not going to take him. If Brian Dable has conviction that he will be a franchise quarterback, they're going to go ahead and take him over Abdul Carter. And actually yesterday, Alex, on the Giants Collective, Chris the Entertainer, he made a really good point. He said, who's the better player right now, Micah Parsons or CJ Stroud? Micah Parsons. Who would be worth more in a trade? CJ Stroud. And that's exactly the line of thinking that would follow here if the Giants took Shedeur Sanders in number 3 overall. Because a franchise quarterback, no matter how good your elite edge rusher is, the franchise quarterback is always going to be more valuable to your roster. So I can't argue with anybody who wants Shedeur Sanders at number 3. I personally want Abdul Carter at this point, again, just because I think Russell Wilson can get us by for a year and the 2026 class can yield a quarterback. But I also understand the argument, why keep kicking the can down the road if you feel like there's a franchise quarterback on the board? But again, just comes down to whether or not you feel Shedeur is a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the Giants, waited an extra year. And I love Malik Neighbors. I don't regret drafting him at all. But last year, they should have probably taken a quarterback. Like that probably was the right decision. And in hindsight, obviously easy to say because of what kind of transpired last year. But now the Giants have pigeonholed themselves into having only one option at 3rd overall. And Sanders is a very polarizing prospect to begin with at 3. So like you said, it really comes down to Brian Dable and what he sees. Now he said last year, they asked him, would you trade up for Drake May? Would you trade up for Jaden Daniels? We heard him say he would do it for Daniels. But Daniels was a special prospect. Daniels had elite mobility and he had one of the best deep balls we've ever seen in college football. And he had velocity on his throws. Like he was a very good quarterback, like an excellent, one of the best we've seen, in college. So he would trade up for Jaden Daniels. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is even remotely close to Jaden Daniels. And look, Jaden went 2 and Shedeur is going to go 3. Those 2 prospects on paper as just pure prospects are vastly different. Vastly different. It just shows how from draft to draft, the talent pool can fluctuate astronomically. You know what I mean? Next year, Drew Aller could look like an absolute monster. He could go to Penn State, have another really big year. Carson Beck could go to Miami and have an excellent year. Who knows what's going to happen? So there's just so many different things that are going to occur. But the truth of the matter is, like, it's up to Brian Dable, as you said. Does he feel as though Sanders is going to be some game changer for him? And the truth of the matter is, Sanders isn't going to play. And if I was Brian Dable right now, Anthony, I'd be like, Joe, we can't take Sanders because we may not be coaching him in 2026. If we don't win games, like, are we going to put all of our stock in this quarterback who, if we lose enough games, we're going to get fired anyway, and we're never going to even see the kid play. We're never going to get a chance to coach him and see if he's even anything to begin with. So that's kind of where I look at the situation. I'm like, Brian Dable probably looks at Joe and says, we need to draft somebody that's going to help us win now at 3, and then take a developmental quarterback and someone that we like with traits or whatever it might be, or wait until 2026 and just to see if we have our jobs. You know what I mean? That's kind of how the logic I would look at it. Like, Brian Dable wants a quarterback. Sure. I mean, that's great. But does it matter if they get fired after this season? No, it doesn't matter that they drafted a quarterback. So, that's kind of where I run into a wall with the logic of taking Sanders, who is not going to play much, if at all, in 2025. And that is a massive risk to take for a regime who's hanging on by a thread. And if they don't win a lot of games, they spent a lot of money in free agency. They brought in Russell Wilson. If things do not go well, they're going to get fired, and they're never going to get to coach Shedeur Sanders in an actual live action game or a full season. And that is concerning. That is a huge question mark to me. So look, if it was Shedeur and there was a vast array of quarterbacks, like there was Bo Nix and there was Michael Penix and there was JJ McCarthy, you have all these options on the board. Yeah. Now let's have that conversation, because you can compare and you can contrast what's a better fit, who's a better player, what's the better traits, who has the better developmental upside. But we don't have that right now. It's Sanders and nobody. So that's where I run into a problem. It's like there's just no one to compare him to. So we're convincing the media, in my opinion, and some fans convince ourselves that he's the guy we have to take because he's the only option to take. And that to me is very, very bad practice. But again, I like Sanders, just don't like him at 3. That's just how I feel about it. But with that being said, Carter, Hunter, easy selection to me. It's an easy, really, really simple. You just walk up to the board and you put the card in, because those two guys are going to make your team better on day one.
That they most certainly will. And Jason Benjamin had the back-to-back super chats. Jason, thank you so much. And I see you got a third one down there as well. So Jason going all in today. Appreciate you so much, Jason. Saying also, Devil's Advocate, we just spent 7 overall, 6 overall though. 7 overall on Neighbors last year, 6 overall. Are we going to spend another top 10 pick on another receiver? Top 3 pick, in my opinion, it should be a quarterback or line of scrimmage player. Hunter is cool, but Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid argument. I think the difference here, though, with Travis Hunter is he plays both sides of the ball, right? I think that if you view him primarily as a cornerback, which I think the Giants might, if you view him primarily as a cornerback and you think he can be a shutdown elite cornerback, then yeah, it's probably justified to take him in the top 10. But the fact that he can be either one of two things is why he's going to go in the top 10 and in the top 3, probably top 2, in fact, because he has such a rare and unique skill set and ability to play both sides of the ball. So, yeah, maybe you don't want to double dip on wide receiver back to back. Maybe you don't want to double dip on edge rusher 3 years apart, 2022 with a top 5 pick in Kayvon, 2025 with a top 3 pick in Abdul Carter. I just think that it really comes down to stacking talent, like I've said. Maybe it should be a quarterback, a line of scrimmage player. I think Abdul Carter definitely is a line of scrimmage player. At some point, though, the Giants do need to stop kicking the can down the road and take a quarterback. It just has to be the right one. And I think they are afraid of drafting the wrong one, seeing how that gets guys ran out of town and how that costs people their jobs. Of course, Daniel Jones being an example. So I think it's just about the waiting game, being patient and finding the right guy to plug in. But yeah, I mean, at some point they do got to take one, don't they, Alex?
They do. But I'll say this, man, if they draft Sanders and it doesn't work out, right, and they get fired, it's not just going to be their jobs that they lose. They're going to lose their kind of, I guess you could say other teams will look at them and be like, what were you thinking? Like other teams are going to look at Joe Shane and Brian Dale and be like, what were you thinking when you did that? That is going to stick with them for a long, long time. Like that decision is going to make or break not just this upcoming year, but the next 5 years for them as individuals. I think Brian Dable will get a job, but Joe Shane probably gets hit the hardest in terms of making that decision, because Dable is he's a solid offensive coach and he'll transition pretty simply. But with that being said, do I feel as though spending another top 10 pick on a receiver is bad practice? What I will say is this: sometimes just taking the best player is never bad practice. You know what I mean? Taking the best player on the board is never bad practice, because if you have 2 elite receivers on cost-controlled rookie contracts and you drop a developmental quarterback into that, the chances of that developmental quarterback being good, I've seen it happen before. I mean, Kirk Cousins was once a developmental quarterback. Jalen Hurts was once a developmental quarterback. Lamar Jackson was once a developmental quarterback. I mean, the list goes on and on. Josh Allen was once a developmental quarterback. Like you can keep talking about these developmental quarterbacks who needed a lot of work. You put them in a position with 2 of the best receivers in football, your chances of finding that spark, finding that gold, enhance, just skyrocket astronomically. So am I upset taking Hunter with the top 10 pick? As Anthony said, it's not just a receiver. He can also play cornerback and he wants to. I'm willing to take that shot because he is one of the best prospects we've seen, one of the best athletes we've seen in a very, very long time. And you don't find that every day. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens with Hunter. The Browns, probably not the best place I'd want to go if I was Travis or any prospect, to be honest. But I'll tell you what, Abdul Carter, New York City, you want to be great. You want to be remembered. That's where you want to go. That's where you want to be, in New York City, in the Big Apple.
Absolutely. And I think that's why Abdul Carter is so excited to be a Giant, posting the picture of Lawrence Taylor on his Instagram about a week ago when he was in the building for a visit. And I saw that he had some sort of tweet where he just said the number 56. I think he's trying to chase greatness with the Giants and trying to emulate the rich history that the New York Giants have with some of their great pass rushers. Jack with another super chat here. Appreciate you once again, Jack, saying just further to Anthony's Texans trade package and getting an extra 2025 second round plus the first in 2026. Use the extra second round for Jalen Milroe's trades. Yeah, I do think that is something that you could be interested in, right? Like if you have 2 second round picks now in this year's draft, Alex, it becomes a lot easier to take that quarterback on day 2 because you don't want to spend the top 50 pick. You don't want to waste one on a quarterback that might not play for you. But if you've got an extra one, might as well, right? I think that is something that you could use as an argument for trading down if you want to stack talent in the middle round of this year's draft. And what I will say more generally speaking, not just to the quarterbacks and Jalen Milroe potentially, but generally speaking, day 2 of this year's draft is like loaded with talent. Adding extra second round or third round picks in this year's draft, not such a bad thing because there really is a ton of talent in day 2 of this year's draft class. So maybe trading down could yield a much better draft haul than just staying put and taking a player at number 3 overall. Again, I'm still advocating for taking Carter at number 3, and that's how I think this is going to shape out. But Jack makes a good point here. If you get an extra day 2 pick here, a second round pick, that's an extra opportunity to potentially go ahead and get your quarterback, maybe trade up into the back end of the first round, take your quarterback there, whatever the case might be. If you've got extra draft capital, you've got extra chances of landing one of those developmental potential franchise quarterbacks in this year's draft. So, Alex, what are your thoughts on Jack's comment here in the super chat?
I mean, of course, like I'd love an extra second round pick. But if it means passing on a generational player, a blue chip prospect, I don't think it's worth it, just to take a shot on a dev quarterback who probably is never going to get there with his arm. Like I like Jalen Milroe. I like his, I like his legs. They're great. But with that being said, I know. I already foresaw the eye roll before I said it, but that's the truth. Love his legs. Dude's got great legs. And the truth of the matter is like, that's an element that you just don't find every day. You know what I mean? You don't find a guy that can absolutely destroy you on the ground every day. So you getting a quarterback that is going to at least be elite in one area, no matter what, that's worth taking a gamble on. You know what I mean? Even if it means spending our second round pick on that, like, I don't think he's worth a second round because I don't think his arm is remotely close. But it's just something that like the projectables with him, if you get it right, you get it right. You know what I mean? Like you freaking hit the absolute gold mine. And Brian Dable, listen, Anthony, why the hell did we hire Brian Dable? What was the main reason we hired that man in the first place when he was nice and chunky? Why did we hire chunky Brian Dable? Because he was supposed to develop a quarterback. He was supposed to be the wizard. Drew Lock called him the wizard. Why have we not drafted a quarterback for him to develop? Why have we not? Why is Tommy DeVito the only guy on this team that they've seemingly let develop on this roster? It's absurd. Give a guy like him, give Brian Dable a quarterback with a trait that's elite, give him a chance to develop him, and let's see. They need to. I don't think Sanders is the guy. I'd rather take the generational blue chipper, and then I'd rather take a dev quarterback and mitigate the risk of missing. Because if you miss on a second round quarterback, no one cares. No one remembers. No one will ever remember. But if you miss on a third overall pick at quarterback, it'll set your franchise back a couple of years, just as we've seen, because you have to give them time. You can't just throw them to the dogs. You can't throw them to the wolves again. You know what I mean? Like, have to give a guy like that time. You just never know. So, you really need. That's just kind of my perspective, and that's why I'll give Brian Dable a chance with like a Jalen Milroe. If Dart fell that far, yeah, well, I don't think he will, but we'll see. So it's interesting, definitely a really, really interesting thought. But I'm taking the blue chipper, and I'm happy to spend a second round pick on a player that if Brian Dable sees, like, I think that this guy could be great, and I can get them there. You take the chance on that. That's kind of where I'm at this point.
Yeah, absolutely fair. And like you said, Jalen Milroe, at least he does have that one elite trait. And like Jalen Hurts had coming out of school, he had that elite trait of his rushing abilities. He got on the field as a rookie, not as the starting quarterback. They drafted him to develop him. They had Carson Wentz tied to a really massive contract that season, still found ways to get Hurts on the field as a rookie because of his rushing ability, then developed him into a good passer and an eventual Super Bowl champion, unfortunately, in years 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. So Jason Benjamin with another super chat. That's 3 from Jason Benjamin so far. Appreciate you so much, Jason, saying Joe Schoen gets a lot of flack for the 2022 draft class, but most people applauded the KT Neal selections. They were consensus top players that year. Absolutely 100% true, and that's why we always say the NFL draft is a crapshoot. I was the first one to applaud those 2 selections because I really liked Kayvon Thibodeau and I really liked Evan Neal. So did Alex. In fact, I remember us watching that draft live right here on the channel and us getting absolutely hyped about those two selections, as most to maybe all Giants fans were. That was a really exciting draft tonight. Unfortunately, things have not gone according to plan. But the one thing that I will say is there was a lot of talent in those two players when they were drafted by the Giants. What went wrong? Well, I think it's just a lot of different factors. Kayvon Thibodeau has not played in one defensive scheme across any of his seasons. Like, he's entering year 4. The first year with Wink Martindale, the defense was one thing. It changed a little bit. I think people forget to realize it changed a lot going into that second year. And Kayvon Thibodeau then had a really good year. Oh, new scheme, new defense, Shane Bowen, stale, stagnant, no blitzes, whatever. So it's been a lot of moving parts for Kayvon, and he's still only 24 years old. He's very young, and he's definitely got the potential to keep progressing and developing. So I still think he's got that star potential. For Evan Neal, on the other hand, my fear is with offensive linemen, when they have those kind of scheme changes, coaching changes, and bad talent around them, and they start to falter early on, it usually stunts their growth, and it's very hard to see that turnaround late in their career. But it's not impossible. We just saw it with Mekhi Becton, so maybe they could turn it around. So he does get a lot of flack. I think he deserves that flack because at the end of the day, the line of thinking that I have is, yeah, I applauded those 2 picks. I didn't get paid millions of dollars to make those 2 picks. My job is not on the line whether or not those players are good. I sit here, I react to it, and I get excited or I criticize, whatever, sure. But he's got to get those right. He's the one who gets paid the millions, Joe Schoen does. So he's going to get the flag because he's a general manager, and that's the cross that he bears, and he absolutely understands that. And I give him more flag for the middle to late rounds of the 2022 class because, yeah, it is a wash. We expected those guys to be good. They weren't. Not his fault, because those were good selections. They were the best players on the board. But round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, landmine. I think Micah McFadden was in that draft class, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a good selection. But outside of that, most of the players that were drafted in that class are borderline unusable, or they're depth players where they just never developed into something worthwhile. So he's going to get his flack. He deserves it. He's a general manager, and he has final say on all these decisions. But I really do struggle to fault him sometimes for the selections of Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, because at the time, they were really, really good selections.
I'm going to say one thing about this, and thank you for the super chat, Jason. Really, really generous of you today. Those 2 picks were fine selections. What happened after those 2 picks is what we will remember. The Giants catastrophically coached those 2 players. Catastrophically, right? Bobby Johnson was a freaking... I don't even know how they let that man in the building. And how he's doing so well with the Commanders, I don't know. But that dude wreaked havoc on that offensive line. Injuries, poor development, poor tendencies, poor habits, poor coaching. I mean, the list goes on. Joe Schoen didn't do anything wrong taking those 2 players. It's everything that the coaching staff did, and the firings, and the Wink Martindale firings, and, everything was horrible. Just, it was everything after those picks that happened that made it even worse. You know what I mean? It just, you can't go wrong taking 2 prospects that by every metric and every analyst were heralded. Were just lavish selections that we were able to secure, and we failed miserably to develop them. But that's why, guys, when the Giants let players go in free agency, they do better elsewhere because they have better coaching, and they have better systems and better discipline and better environments for them to foster growth. That is why the Giants cannot be trusted with trading back, because if they do, we have to trust that they're going to develop players that are in need of more growth and development than the top 2 blue chip prospects in this draft class. And they need to be protected from themselves. The Giants need to protect them from themselves because they can't be trusted to develop players. You think the guys, you want to trust Shane Bowen to develop a raw pass rusher to be our that guy? You want to trust, and I like Carmen Priscilla, but you really want to trust him to develop Banks, at right tackle? Do we really want to go down that path? I'm not so sure, man. Player developments, and like you're saying in the chat right now, OTKP, massive problem, huge issue. Can we really trust the Giants to be passing on a blue chip prospect because we want more draft capital and we don't trust them to develop players in the first place? Hell no. From a fan perspective, hell no. I'm taking the best player available. Not even question. Mitigate as much risk as you possibly can. Can we develop Sanders? He needs work. He's not going to step in and be an immediate star. He needs a lot of work. Can we trust the Giants to make him good? I have no idea. Probably not, based on their tendencies and stuff like that. So, I applauded KT. I applauded Neal because they were good picks at the time, but the Giants coaching has let those men down and many others down tremendously over the past few seasons.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to respond to in everything that you just said there, I have to disagree with you. Ben Johnson, or Bobby Johnson, rather. I'm sorry. everybody's trying to say that he's doing some fantastic job with the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders do not pass protect. They run RPOs and play actions every single play. He's not doing shit. I'm tired of people acting like Bobby Johnson all of a sudden went to Washington and became this great coach. He's still probably the exact same coach. He's got better talent with him, and he's running with an offense ran by Cliff Kingsbury that absolutely completely takes the offensive line out of the equation. It's a genius offensive scheme. I'm not discrediting anybody. I think everybody's doing their job there and they're doing it well. Commanders are a really good football team. Jaden Daniels is the star of the show. Cliff Kingsbury, like I said, has done a great job. And yeah, credit to Bobby Johnson. He's definitely done better there than he did with the New York Giants. But let's not act like Bobby Johnson is just some absolute superstar coach all of a sudden. It's just really a product of the offense that they're running, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on to this next super chat. Once again, thank you, Jason. But thank you to Sam Fountain, another Fireside Giants OG, saying, "Hi, guys. Will FSG livecast on days 2/3 of the NFL draft?" Well, we will definitely be live. I will be live for the entirety of the first round of the draft this year. So the entire Thursday night from pick 1 to pick 32, I'm going to stay live the whole time just in case. Let's say the Giants take Abdul at 3. Well, I want to be live just in case they trade up to 32 to take a Jalen Milroe or whoever else. So I'll be live for the entirety of the first round. Don't worry about that. Now, day 2 and 3, TBD. We're going to get that figured out over the next 7 days. I'll be live definitely at some portion of day 2, but I've got to do Bleacher Report as well at some point on day 2. Bleacher Report live stream. So make sure if I am live before the Bleacher Report one, you follow me over to Bleacher Report for the continued analysis over on that platform. But yes, I'll be live at some point on day 2. I don't know yet about day 3, but day 1, the entirety of it, I'll be live. And a portion of day 2, FSG will be live. Day 3, TBD. So stay tuned to the channel for more updates there. Alex, you got anything to add to that?
No, just thank you, Sam. Again, very, very loyal fan of the page, and appreciate you showing up for the live streams all the time. Yeah, as Anthony said, going to be live for those days. And then obviously we'll have reaction videos the next day, and we'll probably do live streams like following the draft, like the next, I guess when things probably wrap up, we'll do reactions to all the players. We'll look into all the talent. We'll, obviously there'll be some stuff that comes out after the draft and quotes and how they're going to use them and, how they got to this method and, what Joe Schoen has to say about them and what they liked about. So there's so much information that's going to come out, and we'll make sure that you guys get everything and how their plans have changed and what this means for the outlook of this team in 2025. So, a lot of really good stuff there. And yeah, absolutely ODing on meatballs during the first round, JV. Just hilarious all the time. You're so funny. Absolutely hysterical. I laugh every time you're in the chat. So I'm in my mama's house. Yeah, right now it's crazy. But regardless, definitely going to be a fun draft. And I think there's going to be so much to look at in terms of where this team projects to be with whoever they get. So I'm pretty excited. Next week, finally, all these discussions are going to come to an end. I'm really excited just to see who the hell they get this time around.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a fun one. And like I said, stay tuned because next weekend, I'm going to spend probably a total of like 10 hours live on this channel. So you'll get plenty of Anthony Rivardo content, that's for sure. Edward Scissorhands here with a super chat. Thanks again for another one, Edward. Another very loyal Fireside Giants community member here. Appreciate you so much. Saying, I say double dip at defensive tackle. Cam Jackson out of Florida, 6'6", 330 pounds. We could get him late. Yeah, I was actually reading about him, I want to say like 2 days ago, very recently when I was doing one of these mock draft simulators. He came up and I started doing some research on him. Really like that size profile, 6'6", 330. I mean, that's just an absolute monster clogging the middle. So Cam Jackson, yeah, a day 2/3 guy that I would absolutely consider. Is kind of built like Sexy Dexy. Who are some late round prospects you guys like? There's that one wide receiver. I think his name is Kyle Williams, who's flying up some draft boards. He's somebody who I'm interested in. The number one that I always say is Trevor Etienne, the running back out of Georgia. That's a guy that I've been enamored by, and I'm so confused why he's a late day 3 pick. I think that he should be a much earlier day 3 pick, maybe even a day 2 pick. Maybe he ends up going earlier than he's projected right now, but that is my mid to late round sleeper is Trevor Etienne. I think he's so dynamic. He's a one-cut back. He's got great vision, and he's an absolute freak athlete as well from the running back position. It's a deep running back class, so Trevor Etienne is my pick, but there's other running backs as well who I like later in the draft, but Etienne would be, if I got to pick one late round prospect that I do really like, I'm just going to go with the running back out of Georgia, Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, appreciate the donation. The guy I want and I'm going to say his name, Anthony. I'm going to keep saying his name because I want him. LeJohntay Wester. I think he's going to be there in the late rounds. I think he's going to be there in the 5th round, 4th round, and maybe 4th round isn't probably labeled as a late draft pick, but if he's there in the 5th, I'd love him. Like, really good slot receiver, and he's a great guy to stash behind Wan'Dale Robinson. And, maybe he takes big strides forward and he takes over that job and you don't have to pay Wan'Dale. So like there's some players in this draft class. The Giants have also hosted like a ton of players from Rutgers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they took one of those guys too. I have to do some more research on some late round guys that I like. But like LeJohntay Wester stands out to me as someone I would love to grab as like another slot option. And there's some lanky cornerbacks that they have been doing some research on. There's a couple of linebackers. They love to take linebackers in the 5th and 6th rounds. So I would definitely keep an eye out for that. To find another linebacker with Bobby Okereke's deal coming to an end, I think after next year. And, Micah McFadden, his contract situation is coming up. So like they want to have some backup plans. I know they took Darius Lewis out last year, but I don't put much stock in him becoming like some back-breaking linebacker. I think he's a good depth piece. That's about it. So, that's just how I feel. And Anthony, you just for 1 second, not get crazy with your facial expressions just for 1 second. But I appreciate the super chat as always. And yeah, that's 6'6", 330-pound Florida Gator DT, that guy that ran like a ridiculous 40-yard dash. Just draft him for fun. Draft him because he makes Dexter Lawrence look small.
Guy, though.
Oh, that's a different guy. Oh, different.
You're thinking of the guy who's like 440. I actually was reading about him recently. Oh, man, I can't remember his name. Let me actually.
I can't either, but you just have to draft him, or at least get him as a UDFA, just because he makes Dexter Lawrence look small. His name is
Desmond Watson. He's 460 pounds. You're thinking of Desmond Watson. Cam Jackson's another Florida Gator defensive tackle who's a much better, cleaner prospect who's going to go
460 pounds.
460. I was actually reading. This is where I was going with this. What? Desmond Watson. I saw on social media. He actually put out a statement or something explaining how he's really trying hard to lose weight. Views it as a real journey, and it's actually a really sad message that I saw him put out there. But
whoa, what is he? Why is he so big? I bet he ran fast as hell for being that big. He
chalked it up to an addiction. He said that he views it as like being addicted to anything else. He's just he has a serious health problem and he needs to work on it because he knows that being 464 is not sustainable. So he said that he's working really hard to shed some weight so that he actually can play at the NFL level because
UDFA baby
probably makes him a UDFA. I don't think he can get drafted at that
I would absolutely take him as a UDFA. A guy that size with a chip on his shoulder. I love UDFAs with a chip on their shoulder. Victor Cruz, a 460-pound Victor Cruz. Put him at receiver.
I don't know about that one, but yeah,
you saw that 40-yard dash, bro.
Yeah, no, the 40-yard dash was crazy for a guy that size. I'll say this: I've never seen him in that size run. So it's impressive that he did that. But
dude, first and goal at the 160 pounds coming at you, there's a legit automatic freaking touchdown.
Like William the Fridge Perry, but like way heavier. So dude, yeah, I don't know.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean him plus Dexter on the front line. I don't know how anybody stops that, but there is more to playing football than just being large. So, he's got to clean some things up. But Gabe Nation here with a super chat. Appreciate you so much, Gabe. Another Fireside Giants OG. We got so many of the OGs returning with us. It's so cool as we do more of these live streams. We all just become more familiar with one another, and we all obviously recognize who's who. And yeah, I just appreciate everybody who tunes in consistently. That's so awesome. But Gabe's saying if and only if Sanders is their guy, they should seriously consider trading back a couple spots. Don't take him at 3, get more picks. I don't think anyone loves him enough to trade up past us for him. Yeah, but the problem is if you trade back a couple spots, how far are you going to go? Because if you trade down to 10, like I said earlier, well, you run the risk of the Saints at 9. So you'd probably have to trade down somewhere between 3, where we are. So from 4 to about 7 or 8. Either way, though, if you trade down those few spots and you're planning on taking Sanders, well, now you kind of run the risk of, is it going to be the Raiders at 6? Could they sneakily take him? Could the Jets take him at 7? Are the Saints going to jump up from 9 to 4 if you drop down to 6? Like, you run the risk of somebody else taking the quarterback you want. So that extra 3rd round pick or 2nd round pick that you're going to get in exchange for trading down those couple of spots, the risk might not be worth the reward because you might lose out on this quarterback that you're planning on drafting. So at the end of the day, if this is who you want, you should just go ahead and take him at number 3 overall, in my opinion. Like, I would love to gain extra draft capital. The more picks, the better. The more darts to throw at the board, the better. But at the end of the day, I think that if you've got conviction in a quarterback, you just can't play around. You can't run the risk. You got to just go ahead and take them where you are.
Listen, if it's like if you're moving back 1 or 2 spots, I could probably justify it because you can feel pretty confident. They're not going to be able to get in front of you to grab him. So maybe that would be an option. Like, if the Patriots were like, we really want Abdul Carter, and the Giants were like, well, we can get Sanders right behind us, and we can add probably another, mid-round pick to the equation here. Maybe that's worthwhile doing if they wanted to take Sanders. So like you could get cute and pull that off, but if you're moving back like 6 or 7 spots, you are running the risk like of doing that. So you probably just want to, like, if you really like Sanders that much, just take him. Not my preference, but obviously not my decision either. But Gabe, really appreciate the super chat. OG, as Anthony said, and lots of good questions coming in right now. There's so many things the Giants could do. Like this pick, this third overall pick is like totally up in the air right now. I think the easy one, just take Carter. But like if they wanted to get cute, they really could, and they could either make a genius decision or absolutely shoot themselves in the face, which is the more likely scenario because that's kind of what Joe does best. So I wouldn't gamble if I were him.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth the gamble, but I don't know. I mean, if there's a way to pull it off, maybe you just trade down, maybe to 5 where the Jaguars are. Maybe it's possible then because you probably trust the Jaguars aren't taking a QB, Patriots aren't taking one either. So maybe that'd be fine. But then again, you run the risk of somebody trading up into that Patriot spot at 4 or wherever. So I don't know. It's risk versus reward, and it's up to Joe Shane to decide whether or not he wants to take that risk. And Nick Bavas here with a big super chat, boom, saying since the 80s, the one constant we had in all our Super Bowl wins was a dominant defense. When we drafted LT, our fortunes changed for a decade. Then we picked up Carl Banks. Our identity is defense. It's absolutely right. The Giants' identity always has been defense. Punch you in the mouth football. I will say the 2011-12 Super Bowl run was, in my opinion, Eli Manning and a franchise quarterback carrying them to and winning a Super Bowl. But in the playoffs, obviously, it goes without saying that defensive line came up clutch in numerous instances. That defensive line did tremendous things in both of those 2 Super Bowls that I witnessed, 08 and 11/12. So defense has always been the identity of the Giants. The only thing is that I want to actually draw from this and kind of add to, you mentioned it there. They had LT, then they took Carl Banks. They just kept pouring assets into that defense. And that kind of reminds me of this debate that we're having. If back then, would Giants fans complain if the Giants drafted Carl Banks because they already spent top 5 picks on Lawrence Taylor and had other players? Right, so you catch my line of thinking here, Alex. A lot of fans are saying, well, we just spent the 5th overall pick on Kayvon. How are we going to go ahead and drop the 3rd overall pick on a pass rusher? It's what the Giants did in the 80s. They just kept pouring assets into that front 7, kept adding pass rushers and linebackers and defensive linemen, and that's why their defensive line and front 7 was so dominant. That's why they won those Super Bowls. So I think it's a great thing to bring up. The 80s, those Super Bowls, even the 2008 and 2012, they already had some really good pass rushers, still ripped a 1st-round pick on JPP. Had some good pass rushers years prior, still ripped a 1st-round pick on Matthias Kiwanuka. Pouring assets into the defensive line, adding and stacking talent, that really is the way to make a championship defense. And in fact, last point that I'll bring up, obviously building on the Giants Super Bowls, how about the most recent Super Bowl? When the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter, everybody was like, they already have Fletcher Cox. What are they doing? They don't need another defensive tackle. Well, now they have Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter. So now their defensive line is almost unstoppable. So you guys see my point here. Keep stacking talent. That's how you build a great unit, and that's how you build a championship caliber defense.
Yeah, you want to know what helps young quarterbacks develop a lot? Great defenses. Gives the ball back to them, gives them more reps, more opportunities, more chances to throw, more chances to have clutch moments, more chances to win football games. A good defense does your quarterback a lot of favors. We've seen what bad defenses do. I mean, look, Drake May last year showed plenty of promise, but I'll tell you what, that Patriots team was garbage, and they gave him no chance to be competitive. If they had a similar situation like the Commanders did, where they gave him a chance to be competitive, even on the Bears defense at times had really good games, and Caleb Williams just could not score, Drake May would have looked a lot better, and he would have had a lot more success. So like a great defense, a great pass rush can do your young quarterback a lot of favors. So the Giants get Abdul Carter, and they build this identity in the trenches, and they drop a young quarterback into their offense with Neighbors, and they still have more future draft capital, or money, because now you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You can sign another receiver if you want to. You have a good situation. You know what I mean? You have a defense that can aid and support this young quarterback and give the football back in critical moments, and, keep the point slow. You can win 20 to 18 games. You can win 18 to 16 games because your defense is just so locked down. That's a good problem to have. You know what I mean? So appreciate the super chat, Nick. Really, really generous of you. And I agree. Like that identity on defense. And I'll tell you what, John Mara said it verbatim. I'm tired of watching teams run up and down the field on us. You want to stop that? You want to make John Mara happy? You make your defense elite, and Carter gives you a chance to do that. So I do think that it'll at least check one of the boxes that Mara publicly said was one of the reasons he was considering cleaning house this offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. But yeah, I really love the idea of stacking talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think we really picked up a lot of different examples there where it's worked really well for teams in the past. New York Giants teams, Eagles teams, you said Bears, so many teams. Charles Walker here with a super chat. Appreciate you so much, Charles, saying we needed Travis Hunter. He's a franchise-changing piece that would turn this team around. I don't disagree with you. I think that he is a franchise-changing piece. I think that Travis Hunter is going to be an absolute superstar. But I view Abdul Carter pretty similarly. I think that Abdul Carter has the potential to be an immediate impact player that stacks your defensive line and gives you a championship caliber defensive line like we were just saying in the last super chat. So while it does kind of suck, I think that Travis Hunter is locked in number 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Of course, anything is possible. The draft night could be an absolute surprise. Maybe they take Abdul Carter number 2, and we do see Travis Hunter fall to the Giants at 3. Totally possible. Maybe he is a franchise-changing piece for the Giants. Maybe he's a franchise-changing piece for the Browns. Either way, though, I'm going to be happy on draft night because I'm cool with Travis. I'm cool with Abdul Carter. And I'm less cool, but still cool with Shedeur Sanders number 3 as well. So I think the Giants are positioned at number 3 overall. It's going to be hard to mess this one up.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Charles, for the super chat and agree. Like Travis Hunter, he has the upside of the Giants. Make it work. The dual threat, the unicorn. You can't fire Brian Dable and Joe Shane if they make it work with that guy. So, I do think that it would be awesome. He's a guy that's going to fill the seats for you. He's a guy that's going to draw attention to MetLife Stadium. And Anthony, before I kick it back, it looks like you wanted to say something. I have to answer this question. Alex, who asked? Okay. Who would I fist fight? This is the easiest answer I could ever have. It's Tommy DeVito. I'd fist fight the shit out of Tommy DeVito. That dude is my size.
All right, but just know he's not your size. He's definitely much bigger than you. But also, if you fist fight Tommy DeVito, you're fist fighting me too, because I'm standing next to my guy Tommy DeVito.
I forgot you have like a clan.
The Cutlet brothers are we stick together.
Do I have to make a t-shirt? The Cutlet brothers, just you and Tommy DeVito hanging out, eating cutlets.
Awesome. Well, we got to get me. We got to get a way to get me to take a picture of Tommy DeVito, and then we'll make the Cutlet brothers t-shirts and all the Fireside Giants.
Yeah. Well, at first I was going to say I'll say what I felt. The first thing that came to mind was Wan'Dale Robinson, but I realized he's short enough to hit every punch is going to hit me in the throat. So I feel like that may not be the best.
Isn't he your height
on the roster? Yeah, but he's actually a little smaller than me. So I think he every punch I don't know how to handle that. He's fast, he's quick. I feel like his jabs would be lightning fast, which is concerning to me. I think that Cutlet boy he eats a lot of cutlets, so he's probably a bit slower in his defenses.
It's protein. He's packing on protein. Tommy DeVito's jacked, dude. You gotta take a little closer look. He's got some arms on him. He's strong. He's a quarterback.
Are you looking at Tommy DeVito's arms like that?
He's 6'2". He's strong. No, I've seen his workout videos. I pay attention. I saw Jameis Winston's workout video, which was hysterical. With no shoes on. I don't know if you saw that one. He runs to the left with no shoes on, throws an absolute duck. That guy is hilarious. But yeah,
that was hilarious.
Right. I did say sexy Dexy because I was like, just put me out of my misery real quick, Just give me that one shot.
I mean, one hit, you're absolutely chalked. You're absolutely on the ground. I mean, Jalen Hyatt's not a bad one. I feel like maybe he's not the strongest person in the world. I'm trying to think of somebody else that's just really I don't try. Well, you could do Andrew Thomas because he's going to get hurt trying to hit you. You could do. I'm trying to think of somebody that's.
You know what? Here's my answer. No,
I wouldn't want to fight Micah McFadden, dude. I wouldn't want to fight Micah McFadden. I feel like he'd kill me. Actually,
he'd headbutt you. I feel like he wouldn't even throw punches. He would just come in, boom.
He would grab me just by my fucking neck and just smack me in the head Jason Bourne style. Absolutely take me out. Cordell Flott's not about. Actually, I think I'd fight Cordell Flott. I think I'd fight him of all people. If I had to throw hands, probably Cordell Flott makes the most sense. He is the lankiest of the bunch.
I'm dapping people up. No fights for me. I'm a pacifist. Let's all hang out and let's root for the Giants together.
This is why the Giants lose football games, because you have pacifists on the team who don't want to hit anybody.
Good thing I'm not really a pacifist, and I was just being a little tongue in cheek. But I don't want to fight a Giants player. Give me any Eagles player, and I'll literally go to war.
They kill people though. They have a guy that actually Jalen Carter,
Let's
like
relax. Let's
he might
relax. Let's
actually.
relax. Let's stop. Let's stop. Let's not go here. Let's
See,
let's not
LDE, this is what you do on the channel. You make us go
let's
down
not get
dark
Alex
pathways.
Wilson ESM canceled. I'm just gonna move to the super chat. Egypt Steel 85 says love the content and showing support. Egypt Steel is in here for pretty much every single live stream. Egypt, thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Egypt. Another OG of the channel. Much love as always. And I know you've been here for a while and sending many super chats and great questions. So, hopefully we'll continue to see you around. And I'm sure we will as the draft nears in about a week.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah,
we got Golden Station in here saying stickers when. Also love the channel per usual. Appreciate the love. Stickers, Alex. Ship them to my house so I can send them to the Fireside Giants viewers. And I will get them ASAP.
I have them, and we have 3 different ones. Actually, did I send them to you? I kind of want to do. Yes. Can we show them? I saw them? Do you have them? Can we show them?
Yep.
Because I feel like they're kind of cool.
Give me 1 second.
Pull them up. We have 3 different ones. I think we have a neighbors one. Please. See, you are a pacifist, like such a pacifist. I would fight Graham Gano though. That's a good one. The Scottish Hammer I wouldn't fight though because he'd kick the absolute shit out of me. Like actually kick you.
He'd hammer you, bro.
Yeah, see, like that's a quiet silence. Like that's a silence that was worth taking a couple seconds for. But
these mine are intentional. You're just a pause on.
You don't think mine?
My pauses.
Fair enough. Yeah, so these are the stickers that we've made. We have a neighbors one, which is pretty dope. I think this is cool. Shout out to Danny, our graphic artist. He made these for us. Who's the next one?
The next one.
Was it Tracy? Was one of them?
That's Tyrone Tracy. You got that one right.
Oh, it is? Oh, nice. Okay, we got Tracy, and it has to be the last one has to be Dexter Lawrence, right? I believe. Maybe not. I sent it to you a while ago.
Big sexy Dexy.
Big sexy Dexy. And we'll obviously update them for the draft too when we get the players. So
there's
an extra one.
It wasn't 3.
It was a bonus.
There was 4.
It was 4. Who was the last one?
Spider-Man.
Oh. Okay, cool. We have a Spider-Man one too. And then we'll definitely get one for the draft. So if you guys want them, we'll have to figure out a way because there's so many of you. But obviously, if you're a member to the channel, we'll find a way to get them to you. That way, because we know who you are and we can find you easily through the membership. But if you're not a member, like definitely consider signing up. We're going to be doing a lot more like giveaways on the stickers and stuff like that. So appreciate you guys. Nonetheless, even if you don't sign up, still love to have you guys here and converse, and super chats are awesome. So we really appreciate you and the community that we're building. But yeah, we'll try to get you guys stickers and stuff, and we'll try to link up through social media. That way we can get your addresses. So you don't have to drop them in the chat for everyone to send you things. That would obviously be ideal. So Golden Spation, really appreciate the super chat. And yes, we'll get you a sticker for sure. We'll just figure out a way to get into contact with you so we can get your information, and I'm going to make them and send them to Anthony so that way we can get them cooking soon.
Yep. I saw some comments on yesterday's episode as well, where I briefly mentioned it. There was a few people who really wanted some stickers. So again, we appreciate you guys being interested in the stickers. We appreciate all of you supporting us, viewing. Whether you give super chats, whether you just comment, whether you just passively view and you don't comment at all, we appreciate all the support as always. And yeah, those who have commented, I'm going to reach out soon enough once I get the stickers. Send you, let you know when to DM me on social media, send me your address, and we'll get those stickers out to you guys. Whoever wants one, we'll make sure the Fireside Giants community is plugged. And now we've got the final super chat since we went way over time. You know what, Alex? I do have this theory. Let me just share this theory with you. I believe that the viewers of Fireside Giants realize when we get close to the 1 hour mark, and then they start doing the super chats because they don't want us to stop. So they want us to keep going, right? Like today I was careful. I didn't say, unless we get any buzzer beaters, because when I do that, then people love to just throw in the buzzer beaters and keep extending us. I think they're just doing it naturally now. They're like, it's about 45 minutes into the live stream. Let's make sure they go for another 45 minutes. Let's send some super chats now. Ha 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 ha. And we don't complain. We're happy to be here for an hour and a half. Man, I would sit here for 2 hours. I don't care. I'm just happy to sit here and talk New York Giants football. But that is my theory. I think that the viewers do it intentionally, but appreciate you all nonetheless. Gabe Nation with a super chat here saying thoughts on taking a Savion Williams in the 3rd. If you want a Wildcat quarterback, just take that guy instead of reaching for Milroe. Well, would Jalen Milroe really be a reach as a wildcat quarterback because he's definitely got the upside to be a good passer, I think. I mean, I think he's got a strong arm. I always say this about him. I think that he has the right idea on where to go with the ball. He just doesn't have the accuracy quite yet. So I don't know, but I know that the Giants did host Savion Williams on a visit. So they've definitely got a level of interest in him, whether it's in the third or wherever. I'd definitely be intrigued. He's a 6'5", 212-pound wideout out of TCU. Now, TCU wideouts, if you're looking at Quentin Johnson, maybe not always the best hit rate. However, there's definitely some good TCU products this year. Savion Williams being one of them with his size and his athleticism. And then Jack Beck coming out of TCU is also somebody I'm very intrigued by, who was a Senior Bowl MVP. So, yeah, Savion Williams, definitely somebody that I would be intrigued by. I think he's got definitely got the prerequisite size to be a jump ball wideout at the next level. And if you want to throw him at Wildcat, screw it. Let's get the athletes running.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat, Gabe, and really interesting. You want to know who his comp is, and I love this. Do you know who his comp is, Anthony? You're gonna like it too. It's Cordarrelle Patterson. If the Giants could get a player that they could replicate a little Cordarrelle Patterson with, a little kick returner, a little direct snaps as a running back, use him at receiver, vertical threat. Not a bad idea to grab a player like that with some just astronomical tangible traits and with some upside to be a lot more than that and develop a role with just unprecedented potential. Yeah, would love to take a chance on a player like that in the third round. Like those picks, I mean, how many times have the Giants drafted third round players that literally amount to nothing? Might as well take a player that has, and they have 2 third round picks. So may as well take a chance on one of them at being something kind of special and being fun, like have fun. The NFL today has become a league where you need to be creative. You need to have fun to actually be successful a lot of times. I mean, Ben Johnson just laid the foundation for that. Like you have to be different to win in today's NFL. I mean, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, even the Eagles are a little bit different. Like the league was going in a passing direction and they said, wait, hold up a second. Let's develop one of the best ground games in the league. And they won that way. So like sometimes you just have to go in the opposite direction. You have to do unique things. Unique players help you. Travis Hunters of the world, guys like Savion Williams, like those types of interesting players that have just so many different possibilities, sometimes worth taking a gamble on in the mid round. So yeah, like definitely interesting. Unsure if the Giants will go down go down a road like that, but would be interested to see how they deploy a player like Savion Williams if they did draft him.
Absolutely. He's definitely dynamic and versatile. He could be a Swiss Army knife for an offense, just as a weapon that you throw out there in the backfield, out wide, in the slot, wherever. So I'd definitely be intrigued by him in the third round. We did get one last buzzer beater super chat, but I just have to bring up this comment from Bro Dude Guy. Cutlet Brothers sticker with Anthony and Tommy Cutlets with Mario and Luigi hats on the sticker. That would be fire. Let's get that crazy. One cooking up ASAP.
That'd be crazy. But we can do special ones. We can do like special drops for the stickers sometimes.
We will. Don't worry. We will. Jeffrey with the final super chat saying the Cutlet Bros versus Alex and Barefoot Winston. I love it. And the Cutlet Bros are winning that one because
not even close, dude. I have Jameis Winston on my team, which means I have divine powers. You guys are not even Cutlets. You don't stand a chance against Jameis Winston alone. Against Jameis Winston alone, the dude's a savage. Like there's no chance you guys are escaping.
Are we talking about passing drills? Are we talking about fighting?
We're talking about absolute fighting, bare knuckles, fists.
Okay, yeah, you guys are Winston. You guys are going with that. Jameis Winston's like 6'5". He's got some meat on him. Pause. He's gonna put in work on that one.
Was that meant? What did you mean for that one, or did that just slip out of the tongue?
It's open to interpretation.
Okay.
But if we're talking passing drills, just because it's me versus you, I'm wiping the floor with you. So me and Tommy are winning that one.
Eating W's and cutlets. That is probably mostly cutlets because that's what they do. They're Cutlet Bros. Me and Jameis Winston though, like just the quotes are going to be hilarious at least.
Oh yes. They'll be so funny. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, we had over 600 people in here. That seems to be the norm now, which it wasn't always, but it is now, which is just fantastic. Really glad you all are enjoying these live streams and keep coming back and tuning in for more. We appreciate how much support that we're getting for them. Again, we are 1 week away from the NFL draft. I'm going to be live for the entirety of the first round. That's going to be a monster, an absolute behemoth, but I'm super excited. And I have some plans for some special guests along the way. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a really great time. And of course, as we always say, we just appreciate all the support. And we're super happy that so many of you are tuning in every single day. And make sure if you are enjoying, keep smashing that like button for us. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section if you're watching the replay. Make sure you go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. And without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.